In a world where oral tradition can add mystery to any tale, Oklahoma's rich and unique history has spawned a variety of chilling urban legends. Oklahoma's urban legends are truly one of a kind, from terrifying murder stories and heart eating vampires to Satanists who conjure portals. There are a lot of creepy urban legends that circulate around the Sooner State, and today we will look at 10 of those. Belle Saloon has been around since Guthrie's Tent Town days during one of Oklahoma's land rushes. It has had a few different looks through the years, from tents to a wooden building in the early 1890s, and then finally the brick building it is today in 1901. Miss Lizzie's Girls, a group of frontier prostitutes, operated from this location. Their madam, Miss Lizzie, was known to be an intelligent church-going woman. According to legends, families around the area who were about to lose their homes would often sell their daughters into Miss Lizzie's service, being put to work in the bordello. In 1901, the building was expanded, which added another 17 rooms and second floor that housed a gambling den and a full-fledged bordello. Although this was a private club not open to the general public, outlaws and local authority figures were reported to often venture to the second floor. There was even a private iron catwalk that stretched across the street to the hotel, which gave local politicians and affluent visitors access to the bordello girls. Through the years, there have been a number of ghosts reported. The apparitions of a man has been seen mostly on the first floor around the bar and bathrooms. Most women report feeling uneasy in the bathroom, with many refusing to use it at all. There has also been reports of a dark-haired woman seen around the bar that is believed to be the spirit of Miss Lizzie. In the basement, there are reports of an apparition of a man with a handlebar mustache and a brown derby hat who yells obscenities to those who enter. In the bordello, there are reports of unexplainable loud thumps and knocks heard throughout. There are also reports of shadows seen moving from room to room, disembodied voices, humming, and singing. Sometimes the sound of soft crying can be heard, which has been attributed to both Claudia and Estelle, two well-known girls who worked for Miss Lizzie. One legend says that Claudia was beaten to death and buried in the saloon by the coal chute. Near the coal chute is rumored to be an entrance to the old tunnels under Guthrie that were said to be used by prominent patrons that didn't want to be seen. These tunnels would have been a perfect getaway for the murderer. On June 13, 1977, Camp Scott opened for its 49th season. Little did anyone know that this would also be their last. That same night, a terrible tragedy took place, creating a mystery that has never been solved. Open since 1928, Camp Scott was a magical place for girls who came for summer retreats. The 410-acre property could accommodate 140 campers and 30 staff. The Cookie Trail Road led to 10 campsites scattered around the woods. Each site had a 14 by 12 tent with a wood base. Every tent held 2 bunk beds with mattresses. There were no lights inside the tents other than the campers' flashlights. The only other light source was a kerosene lanterns that hung near the latrines. The Kiowa tent was the furthest from the counselor's tent, and that was where Lori Lee Farmer 8, Michelle Goose 9, and Doris Denise Miller 10 were to stay for the season for 2 weeks. Sometime around midnight on the night they arrived, camp counselors Carla Wilhite heard strange grunting noises outside. Checking and finding nothing wrong, she returned to bed. Around 6 a.m. the next morning, she discovered the bodies on her way to the shower. They had been pulled from their tents, beaten, strangled, and sexually assaulted and left for dead. 2 of the bodies had been stuffed into sleeping bags, and the third left on the trail, partially clothed. No one could have predicted this terrible tragedy, but there had been warning signs during the previous 2 months during the counselors' training sessions. During the session, one of the tents was ransacked, and a handwritten note was found warning that 3 campers were going to be murdered. Believing it to be a joke, it was just thrown away. About a week before the murders, there was a report of a burglary at the local ranch. It was later determined that some of the stolen property was used in the crimes. After the bodies were found, the directors called the police and officers flocked the scene. The girls were immediately put on the bus and sent home. Items that had been stolen from camp, along with photos and other evidence, were found in a nearby cave, which led to Jean Leroy Hart to be named as the prime suspect. Hart had a long history of violence with convictions for burglary, rape, and kidnapping, and was supposed to be serving a 50-year sentence for his crimes, but he had escaped prison a few years before the murders and vanished, or so it seemed. Hart had been born and raised in Locust Grove and knew the area well. By hiding out in Cookson Hill region, he was able to avoid police for 10 months until finally captured. Many family and residents of the area believed he was innocent of the murders, even though he was a convicted rapist and kidnapper, so they decided to raise money for his defense. Evidence was found that linked Hart to the camp, but not to the murder scene. He was acquitted of murder because the jury could not find conclusive evidence to link him to the murders, even though the members did not believe he was innocent. It was just that the prosecution could not prove it. He was returned to prison to finish out his previous sentence, along with additional time for his escape. Hart died of a heart attack 2 months later. Over the years, as technology has changed, evidence in the Camp Scott murders has been tested repeatedly, and all tests come back inconclusive. Sadly, the murders will probably never be solved. Camp Scott never reopened and is now abandoned, serving as an eerie reminder of the horrible tragedy that stole the lives of 3 little girls. According to legends, Hart had been under counsel of Native American medicine men during his time in hiding and earned the nickname the Sandman for his skills in shape-shifting. During the investigation, detectives reported many strange things that occurred, including seeing a black dog in the woods that would follow them and then mysteriously disappear. Many people believe Hart was that dog. Through the years since the murders, people who have visited the property still report seeing that mysterious black dog roaming the grounds. Outside of Spencer, Oklahoma, is a place so frightening that the reported paranormal activity is the least terrifying part of its history. The Purple Church off Douglas Avenue is actually just a concrete foundation with stairs leading underneath into a cellar. While there are rumors of what the structure used to be, most people agree that it was either an old clapboard church or a private home which was destroyed many years ago. The purple comes from the many occult symbols spray painted in and outside the cellar. The Purple Church has a long history of rumors involving satanic cult rituals. There are also many places online that claim Sean Sellers, the 16-year-old alleged Satanist that was convicted of killing his parents and a store clerk, was one of the first to use the property for that purpose. According to legends, when a full moon falls on a Saturday, cult members perform virgin sacrifices at the Purple Church. There are also legends that say mothers sacrifice their newborn babies here. While there is no evidence of human sacrifices, There are plenty of eyewitness reports that say animal sacrifices are done routinely. Dead and mutilated animals, as well as animal bones, have been found hanging from trees. There's also one report that claims a tub full of animal body parts was found there. Even though the Purple Church has a reputation of being haunted, there is very little information regarding it. There have been a few reports of strange floating lights in the woods, disembodied voices, and the smell of death. Visitors to the Purple Church, including law enforcement and military, have reported to have been chased out of the area by men in robes. Some have claimed to have shotguns pulled on them. There have also been reports of nails being thrown on the road to damage tires and strand people there, as well as some being chased down the road by a large black truck with its headlights off. The Chesapeake Energy Company currently owns the property, and it is now private property. In 2006, rumors began that the cellar had been filled, but recent investigations have proved that to be false. Neighbors of the property have been known recently to confront trespassers to curb the amount of thrill seekers that visit. Built in 1910 by W.B. Skirvin, the hotel was opened in 1911 and was the first hotel in the city that had air conditioning. The building was 10 stories tall with 224 guest rooms and a grand ballroom that could hold up to 500 people. In 1930, a third wing was added, and the building was now 14 stories tall with 525 guest rooms. Shortly before the addition is when things at the hotel turned dark. According to legends, Skirvin had an affair with a hotel maid who became pregnant. To avoid scandal, he locked the maid in a room on the top floor. Even after the birth, she was not allowed to leave the room, which eventually drove her to madness, causing the maid to jump with her baby out the window to their death. The maid's name is still unknown, although she continues to haunt the Skirvin Hotel. The staff has since nicknamed her Effie. Effie was considered a woman with loose morals, and many men who stayed at the hotel reported hearing a female voice proposition them while they are alone in their rooms. Others have reported to see a figure of a naked woman with them in the shower, and one man reported he was sexually assaulted by an invisible entity during his stay at the hotel. Other strange occurrences reported by staff and guests include strange, unexplainable noises and objects moving on their own, including a maid's cart being pushed down the hall when no one was there. The Skirvin Hotel was listed on the National Registry of Historic Places in 1979, but then closed its doors for 15 years in 1988. During that time, former guests would often report not being able to get a good night's rest because of the constant sounds of a child crying. The historic hotel has now been fully restored and is open once again, with Effie continuing to reside here. In 2010, NBA players from the New York Knicks claimed their game was off after a night of haunts at the hotel, along with other NBA players, according to a 2014 article in the New York Times. There was also another experience in 2016 by a Los Angeles Lake player. Carol Ann Smith, 51, was a well-mannered woman who lived in a duplex in the 1940s with two other women, Virginia Evans and Willetta Horner, both in their early 30s. Although it doesn't sound so strange, the weird part is the hold Carol Ann seemed to have over them. Virginia and Willetta didn't live on the other side of the duplex like you would have expected. Instead, they lived in the basement, wore rags, and slept on orange crates. All the while, Carol Ann occupied the rest of the house, living in luxury. The reason she was able to live this lifestyle was because Virginia and Willetta both had steady jobs and would sign their paychecks over to her. When all this was found out, the women claimed Carol Ann mesmerized them into becoming her slaves. This earned her the nickname Shivangala. When the authorities reached the house, they found several books on magnetism and the power of the mind, along with books on magic and witchcraft. Upon rescue, Virginia and Willetta told authorities Carol Ann had starved and beaten them for religious purification purposes. News coverage also hinted details towards a sex angle, but determined it was too lurid to report in full. After further investigation, it was found that Carol Ann received $17,000 from Virginia's father, and that she had told him it was to provide nursing care for his daughter. She had also convinced the federal government to give her wartime ration book in the name of her pet dog Bon Bon, one of 2 dogs discovered buried in coffins in the yard. They were dug up by authorities after neighbors reported seeing suspicious moonlight burials in the backyard. To top all that off, it was found that the bulk of Carol Ann's money had come from life insurance policies she has taken out on her husband, father, and even a maid, all of who conveniently died right after naming her the beneficiary. There was never enough evidence to support Carol Ann being a con artist, despite the convenient timing of the insurance payouts. Carol Ann was only convicted on charges of forcing Virginia and Willetta to falsely testify against a neighbor she didn't like, as well as mail fraud over wartime rations. Carol Ann only served 1 year in prison. No one knows what happened to Carol Ann after she served her time in prison, or much of anything else now, because the file that was kept on her was stolen. The Hex house was torn down in the 1970s, and a parking lot was put in its place. The basement where Virginia and Willetta were enslaved reportedly still remains under the blacktop, and the rock foundation and front steps can still be seen around the lot. When the parking lot was in regular use, there were reports of car headlights coming on by themselves. Whether haunted or not, Hex House left its mark on Tulsa, Oklahoma's history. The Stone Lion Inn was built by F.E. Houghton in 1907. The mansion is 8,000 square feet with 4 floors and was a private residence for the Houghtons and their 12 children. One of the children, Augusta, became sick and died in the home of whooping cough after a nurse gave her the wrong medicine. In the 1920s, the mansion was used as the Smith Funeral Home. Then, in 1986, it was sold and turned into a bed and breakfast. During renovations, strange, unexplainable noises were reported. Phantom footsteps were also heard coming from the back staircase in the early morning hours, and the doors would open and close by themselves. It is reported that the current owner's son would neatly put away all his toys every night before bed, but when he got up the next morning, his toys would be scattered again. According to legends, Augusta Houghton haunts the halls, along with her father, who has been seen many times throughout the house, huffing and puffing on his pipe. Guests of the inn have also reported seeing a childlike figure tucking them into bed at night. Others have reported unexplainable sounds of noisy children jumping on beds when there are no children staying at the inn. A wooden ball rolling across the floor is also reported to echo throughout the mansion. Beaver Dunes Park is located in the panhandle of Oklahoma and has some strange going-ons. There have been enough mysterious happenings and disappearances to earn it the nickname Oklahoma's Bermuda Triangle. According to legends, Francisco Vasquez Coronado, while exploring the area in search of New World gold, ignored the warnings from the native guides to stay away from the dunes. 3 members of his expedition suddenly disappeared before his eyes amidst strange flashes of green lightning, which Coronado wrote about in his diary, calling the phenomena the work of the devil. One legend of the area claims that it is an ancient Native American burial ground, and we all know that disturbing any of these is bad news. Known by the natives as the Shaman's Portal, the area has been blamed for many disappearances. Locals claim to have seen mysterious military excavations conducted under the cover of darkness. After many reports of strange findings in the 1990s, Oklahoma State University archaeologist Dr. Mark Thatcher spent 3 years studying the area until he was shut down by what reports claim is men with military credentials who fit the description of the notorious Men in Black. The team supposedly took many geological samples and found strange anomalies, including ionized soil and electromagnetic interference, all which led many to believe that an ancient alien spacecraft is buried somewhere under the dunes. Aliens are only one of the legends of the area. The theories about the mysterious disappearances and weird lights have others claiming that the dunes hold a portal to another dimension, with a lot of missing people either transported or incinerated by green lightning. Yet others believe it is some kind of Native American magic meant to protect the tribal gold from greedy explorers. This large 2-story building with a full attic and basement was built in 1923 as a Masonic home for orphans. It was in operation until state laws changed and foster home programs were established in 1978. With the home's population dwindling, they closed the doors that same year. The building remained abandoned until 2000 and has now been renovated as the Dominion House, an event center that offers luxurious wedding accommodations. Legends surrounding the children's home say that one of the headmistresses were cruel and would often beat the children as punishment. One day, she took things a little too far and beat a 6-year-old boy to death and buried his body in the basement. When she was questioned about his disappearance, she would say that he ran away. Over the next several years, 4 more boys went missing, and she gave the same explanation. One day, the plumbing at the home broke, and to repair it, workers had to dig in the basement. Worried the bodies would be found, the headmistress decided it would be best if she moved them. A custodian noticed she was acting strange and followed her one day to the basement, and to his surprise, he saw her digging up the bodies. Another legend says that a nurse hung herself in the Belle Tower. It is believed she had anger issues and was unstable with reality. There are also reports that there were graves in the backyard. While the building was abandoned, people who explored it reported seeing apparitions in the various rooms. Other encounters include an entity of a little girl who begs for help and protection, a woman seen walking down the hall in the main hallway, a dark shadow in the bell tower that is reported to hover around people. There have also been reports of crying and screaming children heard. During renovations in 2000, workers reported hearing phantom footsteps as well as the sound of children crying. There has never been an official paranormal investigation, and the property is now under private ownership with strict no trespassing policies. Stikini are beings from Native American Seminole tribe legends. When the tribe was forced to come to Oklahoma in the 1800s, they were forced to live alongside a new threat. Stikini are witch shapeshifters who transform into owls at night. Although they look like the average person during the day, After dark, they shift into an owl-human hybrid. Their arms form into wings and grow feathers, and their fingers force claws from its tips. Their faces change into beaks, and their eyes change into large black owl eyes, but they remain the size of a human. To fully transform, the Stikini must vomit up its organs and hide them in the woods, often leaving them hanging from a tree. In order to change back to their human form, the witch has to retrieve and reinsert their organs. After fully becoming an owl, the Stikini must find their prey, a sleeping human, then rip out the heart through the mouth. They then must return to the woods and eat it. Then they can change back and go about their normal lives. Bird Creek School is a 2-room schoolhouse that was built in 1939. It was a small country school that got its name from the nearby Bird Creek. It was introduced as a modern facility at the time, with advanced instructional teachings and providing jobs to some of the impoverished workers in the area. Little is known about Bird Creek School, but according to newspaper articles from the 1970s, it is assumed the building was used as a community center after it closed in the mid-1960s. In 1979, it was mentioned about being used for an outdoor living camp for students. According to legends, if you write your name on the chalkboard that still remains, then leave for a few minutes, when you return, your name will be erased.